Today on Thru the Numbers, it is the NHL show. This is for Wednesday, October 10th. We didn't get a video out for October 9th, but if you follow us on IG, I did put out goal Caulfield anytime goal, which hit comfortably in the first period and ended up being the only goal in that stinker of a Leafs game versus the Canadiens, obviously. On our last video, we did go 4-1 with the picks. We hit Dylan Gunther goal. We hit Dylan Gunther point. We hit Logan Cooley 3 shots, and we hit the best bet of the day, which was Elias Lindholm for a point at plus money. The only play that missed was our puck line parlay because Boston just did not show up in that first period against Florida, unfortunately. And then technically we did go 6-1 if you also played those line combo bets for Utah that I mentioned, the Smaltz and Keller point combo parlay that hit, and so did the Gunther Cooley point combo bet. Funny enough. But I digress. Today is another day. There are other games and other lines, and I have to say there was a struggle to find the same level of value that I did on night one. But I think I found a couple interesting plays here that we'll talk about. And if you're riding with us, then you are. And if not, fade away. No problem with that here. So let's get into it. Let's start with the first pick. The first pick I got for you that I really like today, this might be the best bet of the day, is William Eklund of the San Jose Sharks to go over 0.5 points. So to score a point, William Eklund to get a point tonight. So the reason why I like this play is, Eklund, he's, I believe, going into his third year now. He's only played one full season. But he really came on at the end of the year last year after they traded away Thomas Hertl and handed the keys over to him. He had 20 points in his last 25 games to close out the year. So this year he'll have more weapons surrounding him to support him, where he'll be able to create more scoring opportunities, not only for himself, but obviously for other teammates, where he'll be able to rack up points. In more recent play, obviously it's the beginning of the season, but he registered a point 8 of his last 10, averaging just over a point per game over that span. And the other reason why I really like this play, the Sharks are playing the St. Louis Blues, and the Blues didn't get worse. And you could maybe say with the RFA signings, they did get a little bit better, but still not sold on that team, even though they beat Seattle. But Seattle's not a team I really like this year anyways, coming from a guy who bet the under on their win total and also the under on them to not make the playoffs. So anyways, back to what I was getting at is Eklund has scored a point in 3 straight games versus St. Louis. 3 of 4 head-to-head games he's played, he's had a point in. And in their last meeting, he scored a hat trick against them. So he's been hot against his team. He's definitely going to feel confident against his team. And, coming out on opening night, I think, and I believe this is a home game for the Sharks, I think he should be able to get us a point tonight. So, yeah, that's our best bet. That's William Eklund to score a point tonight against St. Louis. Let's move on to the next one. And this one's probably not the one you'd expect, but I like it because we're getting it at plus money. And not a name that most people know, but Cole Sillinger of the Columbus Blue Jackets to get over 2.5 shots. So Sillinger has a huge opportunity this season to rack up big minutes on this lackluster Blue Jackets team. Okay? He's gone over in 7 of his last 10 and has consistently gone over more times than not when he plays around 16 minutes or more, which He did in the late half of last season, and will have the opportunity to do so now. He sits on his off wing on the top power play, so he'll have plenty of shooting opportunities from that position. So ample opportunities to put the puck on the net there. And he centers the third line, but if they go head-to-head with Minnesota's third line, I kind of see this third line of Columbus's as kind of a... I'm not going to say they're going to be lights out, but they could give a lot of other third lines a run for their money because they're highly skilled with Sillinger and with Kent Johnson on the wing, who's a skillful up-and-coming winger as well. He also had 5 shots in the last game he played against the Wild. So it's hard to pass this up at plus money, and in my book, it's worth a sprinkle at the very least. So I haven't bet this yet, but I think I'm going to put money on Cole Sillinger to go over 2.5 shots against the Minnesota Wild. All right, so speaking of unsexy plays, here's another third line center with a plus money play for you. And I know this one's even less sexy because he doesn't sit on the top PP. He's on the second PP, but Anton Lindell of the Florida Panthers to score a point at plus money. Lindell is one of the best third line centers in the league, and he was a huge part of the Panthers playoff run and eventual Stanley Cup win last season. I mean, we're counting playoffs here, but he registered a point in 7 of his last 10 and has exceeded a point in 4 of his last 5 games versus bottom 10 defenses. So that would include regular season games for assists allowed. He's also registered a point in 3 straight games against Ottawa. This could be a big year for Ottawa. They did get a goaltending upgrade potentially. I'm just not that sold on it yet, and I'm not sure they're going to be great defensively. Plus, it's going to be opening night, so usually in the first week or so, couple weeks of the season, that's when a lot of scoring happens because teams and coaches haven't really implemented their defensive systems to the fullest. The players aren't used to playing, and that's when a lot of goals can happen. And goalies aren't in mid-season form, so really hard to pass this one up at plus money. Not going to tell you to put a full unit on this because obviously we don't know if he's going to get the opportunity, but he did get 17 minutes in the last game, which is a good sign. So I think it's worth taking a shot on. I haven't bet this yet, but I probably will. Let's just say that. Probably will. All right, next play we got. So this one is going to be a parlay, and there's a couple different ways you can parlay this. But I'll lay out the crux of the parlay first. So the crux of the parlay is for Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars to get a point. So Robertson had 80 points in 82 games last year. But due to a bit of struggles down the stretch and in the playoffs, it felt like he had an off year. He only scored 29 goals. He had 40 plus the 2 years before that. This is a new year, and he should have more opportunities to produce now that Joe Pavelski's gone. They're going to look to someone to be that leader, especially on the scoring side of things, and that is going to have to land to their biggest offensive threat, which is Jason Robertson. So he registered a point in 8 straight games against the Predators. So in his last 8 straight games, he's registered a point against the Nashville Predators, and over that span, he had 14 points in total. So he's been cooking against them. But because this line by itself is juiced, unless you got like a parlay, unless you got like a boost token that brings it up to plus money, if you got that, then why not? Why not throw the max you can throw on that? But because it's juiced, you got to parlay it with something to give it a more favorable odd. Give it an odds that we're more comfortable with taking. And so I got 3 options for you that you can parlay this with that I couldn't talk you off either. So the first is just taking his shots, minus 2.5. Not because he shoots a lot. He I think he's around 50%. 50% on the season last year, at 2.5 shots. You could probably get away with taking his alt line shots. I don't know if that'll give you plus money, but not a bad look if you take either his 2.5 shots or his alt line 2 shots there, because he has hit this consistently against the Predators. I think in that 8-game span, he's only gone under twice, and he went well over many of those times he played Nashville. So you couldn't talk me off taking his 2.5. You couldn't talk me off the out line, of course. I like those outline shots. Another one you can parlay with, just because he consistently gets 2 shots, is the alt line for shots with Tyler Seguin. And when I looked at this, Tyler Seguin 2 shots with Jason Robertson point was plus 100, I believe. So that's even money. I can't talk you off that. And then the third and final one is, we've been really hot in the channel with our line combo point parlays so far. And this one I kind of like. I'm only hesitant because Roope Hintz had kind of an off second half to last year. But again, without I know he dealt with some injuries last year too, so that could have been a factor. But he plays on the top line with Jason Robertson right now, and he plays top power play with Jason Robertson right now. And we know Roope Hintz can put up points when he needs to, and right now he needs to because they're going to be missing that Joe Pavelski. So this is another guy I look to step up. Everyone else I think is looking at the young guys like the Stankovens and the Wyatt Johnsons. And sure, but these guys are young guys, and that's a heavy load for them to take on, especially when you're talking about leadership and scoring, for guys who aren't really proven, who haven't done it yet. So they have the opportunity, of course, but I'm going to look to the guys who have proved they can score in this league first. And so that's why I like that. I like that combo there. Also, it's hard to take the Stankoven Robertson point parlay because they don't play on the power play together. So that's why the Roope Hintz one is a little bit more attractive. And that's pretty decent odds. That's probably the best odds of the bunch. All right. So next play that I want to talk about, and if you watched our last video and I mentioned it off the top, I really liked it against Chicago. So he made me look like a genius the other night, and although this is going to be a much tougher matchup, I don't see why we shouldn't go back to him here. So again, I'm going with Dylan Gunther for a point. Gunther has registered a point in 14 of his last 20 games. Over that span, he scored 20 points in those 20 games. He plays that second line with the highly skilled Logan Cooley, who looked pretty good on night one, mind you, again against Chicago. And I got thoughts on that too. I'm trying not to get too excited over Utah, because if you watch that game, Chicago outplayed them in the second or third period. Chicago probably should have won that game, but they hit like 5 or 6 posts. They were very unlucky in that game. First period was all Utah, but after that, Chicago really dominated that game. And just, maybe it's Utah does have this firepower, and really we saw a lot of it coming from Dylan Gunther. He had a lot of great scoring opportunities. So like I said, he's on that second line with Logan Cooley, and that line looked pretty good. A little shaky defensively at times, but they should create a lot of chances together, those two. And then he plays on the top power play as well, so that makes me think he's going to have ample opportunity to rack up the points. And you also can't, and like I said, he's just been super hot over his last 20 games. And then you also can't talk me off sprinkling on his anytime goal again, which I think is almost at plus 300 last I checked. It's high plus. Anyways, it's in the plus 200, in the high range of the plus 200s. I think that's what I'm trying to say here. So those odds are really nice too, especially for a guy who's registered 10 goals in his last 20 games. And then even more recent performance, he's also had 6 goals in his last 5 games, scoring in 4 of those 5. I'm this one of all the ones that I'm leaning, that I haven't bet yet, this is the one I will probably sprinkle on, is the anytime goal. But I'm definitely going to put money on him to score a point tonight, because we're getting it at better odds too. Like I said, it's a tougher matchup, but I'm really not that sold that the Islanders are still this great defensive team. I'm not sold that their goaltending is really that good. Is Sorokin even there right now? I don't even think Sorokin's there. And I'm not that sold on Varlamov, and I don't think they're still that same defensive team. That I think they're still a good defensive team, a decent defensive team, but last year, like, if you look at it, goaltending sometimes tells the whole story. Because if you look at Carolina last year, Carolina should have been, and we were all expecting to be, one of the best defensive teams, but in that first half of the season, they couldn't get it going. And a main reason for that was they just weren't getting goaltending. They figured it out down the stretch, obviously, but for a good part of the season last year, like, wasn't looking good for Carolina for that reason. So, yeah, you can't talk me off the anytime goal for Dylan Gunther, but we're definitely going to bet the Dylan Gunther point in this one against the New York Islanders. That is about it, but I'll mention something real quick. Other parlay play I kind of like in this one is just because the Islanders give up a lot of shots. They were I think bottom 7 in giving up the most amount of shots last season, and we could see that continue tonight. So these are just things to consider. I'm not putting these as best bets, but parlaying Keller over 2.5 shots with Dylan Gunther, 2.5 shots gets you a nice little return. Obviously you got the line combo bets. You could go with the Gunther Cooley. You could also go with the Keller Schmaltz again. I do lean more to the Gunther Cooley, just because I think that top line is going to get a lot of attention in this one. But and with the Islanders having home ice, I believe, in this one, that likely means that they'll get their preferred defensive matchup against the top line. So just makes me think you might get a better matchup for the second line. But you couldn't talk me off sprinkling on either of those, especially if you're getting decent odds on it. But the Cooley Gunther is still really nice odds. I think it's plus 300 for their combo, which I think I threw a little half unit on it. But yeah, not saying that as a best bet tonight, because it is a bit of a tougher matchup. And like I said, I don't want to get I'm not ready to get too excited for Utah. I said in the last video that I really like this team on paper, but I saw some things I really liked in that first game, but I also saw some things that were kind of concerning, because I think I'm glad let's just say I'm glad I didn't bet them on their win total, and I'm glad I didn't bet them to make the playoffs, which I was considering because it is plus money, but yeah, I'm glad I didn't do that. And the other play, again, because Islanders give up a lot of shots, we bet in the last one. I'm not putting this as a best bet again, but something to consider is Logan Cooley's alt shots again for 3. I know I'm talking about 3 guys getting 3+ shots against the Islanders, but if they're giving up shots like they were last year, and the goaltending situation, defensive situations, anything like it is last year, it's not too crazy to believe that all three of those guys could get at least 3 shots against them. So it's definitely something to consider. I know I am. I haven't bet either of them yet, but somewhere to go there. But for live betting strategy, I said I was going to talk about it, and it's maybe for the better that I didn't do a video, because I wanted to talk about betting the Leafs. So I bet the Leafs in the second period of the game last night, plus 190. Because, down 1 goal going to the third period, they were dominating that game. And they dominated in the third period, and they just couldn't get it past Montembeault. And that's just how it goes sometimes, unfortunately. But I still don't think that was a bad bet. I'm just taking a look at the lines here. So, live betting opportunities. So for live betting, the strategy is really, you look for a team, if a really, really good team, Florida, Ottawa, or Boston, Montreal, okay? If Boston or Florida goes down by 2 goals in the first period, I'm hammering them on the money line in that intermission if it's really decent plus money. If it's plus 150, anything plus 120 even, I'd probably still hammer it, but I'm hoping for plus 150 or better. I'm betting that. See if there's another one here that would be interesting. Or let's say the Minnesota Wild. As much as I don't think this team's as good as some people think they are, but if Minnesota's losing by 1 going into the third period against Columbus, and you can get them at plus money where they're minus 225 going into it, yeah, I would definitely consider, depending on how that game script is playing out. Obviously you got to use common sense too. You got to look at, if you're watching the game, that's usually a better indicator, but you can at least look at the stat line and say, is this team, who's out shooting who's out possessing who? That can sometimes give you a decent idea. So another one, obviously, as much as I love my Sharks, if the Sharks are holding a 1-goal lead going into the third, I might consider putting a money line bet on St. Louis, as much as not a huge fan of the Blues this season. That's really about it, because I could see a lot of the other games going a couple different ways. But that's really the strategy. The strategy is you look for a team, you identify teams that are huge favorites on the money line going into the game, and then you look for opportunities in that game where you can bet them live at plus money. Because you can't look at it but they have to come back by 2 goals. You have to look at it by, there's still time left. There's a lot of hockey to play. If I could have got this team at the beginning of the game at plus money, would I have taken them? And if that answer is unequivocally yes, then yeah. Sometimes you gotta take that risk, and you will often get rewarded in this. I know Colorado was a team, and the New York Rangers was another team last year that I did this with almost religiously. Anytime they were, down by 2 in the first period, or down by 1, sometimes even down by 2 when I was feeling really bold going into the third. Because when you have those teams that are just high octane, overpowering offenses, they can really smother you in the third period, and teams tend to play on their heels when they're up against them. And when you play on your heels and you have that fucking 2-goal lead, it can be really scary. So look for those opportunities. If one does arise, if you follow us on IG at Thru the Numbers, THRU, by the way, I might throw something out there, and then eventually we'll get a Discord going or something once we get enough people interested once we get this community built out a little bit more. But yeah, that's about it for me for today. Like I said, there wasn't too many that I'm crazy about. I'm more so looking at value plays. It's really just the Eklund play and the so far I've only bet the Eklund play. I haven't bet the Gunther play yet, but I'm definitely betting the Gunther play. And I think I bet 2 versions of the Jason Robertson point parlay. But yeah, let me know what you guys like for tonight. Let me know what picks you're rolling with. Like, comment, share, subscribe. That stuff supports the channel. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna try and get more of these out to you guys. There's gonna be no WNBA video today because I looked at that. I looked at that final. I looked at the lines, and I don't know. The lines seem pretty sharp to me, and in terms of the data could go like the numbers just don't look great. Like nothing looks great to me where I'm like, oh, you gotta bet this. I kind of want to I want to watch this game and see how it plays out because I'm really interested to see how these teams match up. I will say that I did bet the Lynx to cover 6.5 today, and if that number goes higher than 6.5, I would urge anyone to bet that. But if you're here watching this, you don't care about the WNBA, probably you just care about the NHL picks. So I hope you enjoyed these NHL picks that I gave you today, and we'll see you next time. Peace.